amazing people. They have a lot of knowledge about UW Bothell and UW Seattle between them. And I would say you even have a lot of knowledge about each other's campuses, which was nice to see you work together. This is Garrick Sherburne from UW Bothell and Yvonne Chu from UW Seattle. They are going to enlighten you with so much information. And then for those who are joining us live on Teams, the chat is not working, so apologies. We'll try to repeat questions so that you can hear what people are asking and know this is being recorded. So hopefully you'll be able to watch it later and catch anything you weren't able to catch watching it live. Thanks so much. Take it away.
Great. Well, welcome everybody. We're so excited to have you. Yeah, as I mentioned, I'm Garrick. I use he, him, his pronouns.
And I'm Yvonne Chu, and I use she, her pronouns.
Perfect. So we're going to talk a little bit about kind of UW in general. What are the differences between the different campuses? How do I apply to UW? How do I get into my major at UW? We'll spend about 20 minutes there, and then we'll have about 10 minutes for questions at the end. So, yay. Let's get started. So just a quick little caveat, not caveat, gosh, the word. My brain, I've worked too long today. Starting point, the University of Washington experience. So University of Washington degree, we are a tri-campus model. There's actually 3 UWs, UW Bothell, Seattle, and Tacoma. UW Tacoma is presenting in the WGAP, the Washington Guaranteed Admissions Program panel, so that's why they're not here in this specific presentation. Every diploma for University of Washington is the same degree. We like to tout that the universities are different in terms of student experience, so that can really influence which UW is the right fit, but not difference in terms of education. Those will be same across the board. UW Bothell, or not UW Bothell, excuse me, UW specifically really values the faculty-student relationship. We love students working with the experts in their field. We're very into research at our campuses, so we love that students get that experience hands-on, that they can translate to internships and then college to career. All right, next one. Trying to get to the meat. There's a lot more questions down the line. So let's talk about applying to the UW. It does vary a tiny bit. So,
okay. I'll take it. So even though we're one university system, we are 3 separate campuses with 3 separate admissions offices. So if you would like to be considered at all 3 campuses or 2 of the 3, then you do need to submit those separate applications. All 3 are available on the Common Application, which is an online platform. It's supposed to make it easier because you can apply to thousands of colleges and universities around the world with that same questionnaire, essentially, that you fill out. And they also ask for a personal statement, and they usually ask for official transcripts and letters of ref. But University of Washington, Seattle will not take that. I will talk about that a little later. We also offer our own institutional application called ApplyWeb, which will become available on our website on September 1st. I think we're the only one in the UW system that has that. And however, we do all share the same financial aid office. So that's the good news. You only need to select one financial aid code when you're completing your pre-application for federal student aid or the WAFSA, the Washington State financial aid, if you are eligible for that. So that's the good news. You'll get the same package regardless of which campus you go to. We do also have different timelines. So like when you apply, when you'll hear back it's gonna be different for each campus. And how we select students will also be slightly different. And how you choose your major or get into your major also works differently at our campus.
So let's expand on those topics where we vary a little bit, some more detail. Next slide for us. So let's talk about the timeline. So this is going to be most relevant to seniors in high school. So September 1 is when the Common App opens. Also, I'm saying ApplyWeb, it's ApplyNet. Also, is it ApplyWeb? Is it ApplyWeb? Oh gosh.
Okay.
That's also where ApplyWeb is. So that all opens September 1st. As Yvonne mentioned, yes, we're all on Common App, but you do need to select which schools you want that sent to. So if you want to apply to Bothell and Seattle, you will check both campuses, vice versa, etc. October 1 is when the FAFSA WASFA opens. If you have any seniors in the room, I apologize about this year. The FAFSA went undergo some big changes. It's a little bit different this year, but typically speaking, October 1 is when that FAFSA WASFA opens. November 15th, very important deadline within the UW system. UW Seattle, it's their one and only deadline. You have to apply November 15th to get full consideration for admission. Bothell also has a November 15th deadline. It's only early action though. So basically early notification if you've been admitted or not. Jan 15, the Bothell deadline returns. That's going to be our regular decision. So that's kind of our November 15th. You have to get everything in by January 15th for full consideration with UW Bothell. And then for all UW campuses, as Yvonne mentioned, the FAFSA-WASPA, that's when you need to get submitted for all UW campuses that you applied to. You only have to fill out one application one time, which is very nice. As we mentioned, the timeline for decision will vary between the two campuses. So UW Seattle, their deadline November 15th. You'll hear back within March 1st to March 15th. That's their window. You'll probably hear from Bothell a little bit earlier, and if you applied to Tacoma, you'll hear from us earlier too. But we encourage students to consider all their offers before they make a final decision on May 1st. And then those financial aid award letters usually get released around April after students have got their admission for UW Seattle. It's usually the timeline of how things work out. Application materials, yes. Applying on the Common App, as I mentioned. Every campus does require a personal statement, but it's a little bit different. So let's talk about Seattle first for your personal statements.
Yeah, so if you're using the Common Application to apply to Seattle, we're not going to import that personal statement. Did I say?
Yeah, personal statement, yeah. Common App essay.
The Common App essay, we will not import that, okay? So we're not going to read that. Instead, we ask our own questions. We have two, one 650-word limit, the other is 300. We want you to answer those essays on our part of the application. If you want to reuse your Common App personal statement, like copy paste, you can, but just make sure you paste into our section. Otherwise, we won't see it. We also, you do it differently though.
Yeah, so we take the Common App essay that Yvonne is talking about. So you do not need to copy and paste with us. You can certainly. And also a very important part of the admissions process too is that I won't know if you applied to Seattle, and Yvonne won't know if you applied to Bothell. So it's totally okay to use the same essay for both campuses. Again, those decisions are separate, so you'll hear from us at separate times, and the decisions could be separate, but it's okay to use the same materials for both campuses.
We do share the smaller short response.
We do share the short response together, yes.
Yeah, so it's our community essay or diversity essay. We encourage students to think about their identities, reflect on that, see how those identities show up in their lived experiences, and what about those lived experiences provide a unique perspective, either, about how they view the world or their place in the world. So that's what we would like you to write about and share with us, because learning in diverse environments is one of our core values.
Excellent. And another key component of the Common App application is the self-reported grades. So we will ask you what grades you took freshman year, what classes you took, what grades you got in those courses from freshman, sophomore, and junior year of high school. Transcripts are not required in this case. And then also we are test optional. Realistically though, Yvonne and I talked about it before the session started, we don't really look at the SAT and ACT on our initial reviews. So I would say go ahead and not worry about that part, focus on the rest of the application specifically.
And just a reminder, Running Start students, even though you're in college, maybe you're taking all your classes there, maybe you're even going to get an associate's degree. For both campuses, you are a freshman applicant, a first-year applicant. So remember that.
All right, let's talk about getting into your major. So this one kind of we're going to spend a little bit of time here because it's very complex. The short answer before we get into all these details is that every major is a little bit different at both campuses in terms of getting into that major. So please go to our website, talk to the admissions team. We know about the pathways for those majors specifically. We're happy to answer any of those questions. So let's start from least complex to most complex, potentially. So least complex pre-major to major pathway. This is going to be the most common pathway students are going down the pipeline. So pre-major essentially means that you're not in a major upon starting at one of the UW campuses. Your freshman and sophomore year, you're working on prerequisites specific to your intended major. So for psychology, taking Psych 100, you're taking statistics. For business, we're doing business law, macro and microeconomics. Once you complete those prerequisites for your intended major, you will apply to your intended major, usually end of sophomore year. And then junior and senior year, you're in your major coursework, completing all your major requirements, maybe doing research opportunities, maybe doing study abroad as part of your experience. So that's going to be the most common pathway for students, is this pre-major and major pathway. On the application process to majors in the pre-major to major pathway, some majors are a little bit more competitive than others. There is a threshold of competitiveness. Usually computer science is going to be your most competitive. There are a couple of majors at both campuses that are open or minimum admission requirements, which basically means as soon as you're done with prerequisites, you will get a review with the academic advisor and we'll say, yes, you completed those courses, you're on your way. At Bothell, this is stuff like psychology, ed studies, these minimum admission requirements, gender, women's sexuality studies, global studies, all these minimum admission requirements. What are some open majors minimum at Seattle? I'm going to quiz you.
Okay, we have far fewer. Unfortunately, at Seattle, we do have a lot of demand for a lot of our majors. And so many of them are minimum requirement or what we call capacity constraint. But I don't want to get us bogged down in that right now. At the University of Washington, Seattle, we have 180 majors to choose from. Students can change majors. Students can study across the schools and colleges that we have. So I can be an English major but take some business classes, or I can be an art history student and take music classes or take computer science classes. So I don't want everyone to get bogged in like, oh, you get into major, you're locked in forever. You can come to college, you can study across all these different departments, you can switch. I believe that's true, like for you too. So I know that Seattle gets, because we do have some majors that are very much in demand and we don't have enough seats every quarter for all the students who want to study them and major in them. We call those capacity constrained, and we institute sometimes an application process on your way into those majors. But don't get bogged down by those, because our application cycles are sometimes year round. So like biology, one of the most popular majors at Seattle, they have application cycles every quarter. And roughly 90% of the students who want to study biology can study biology and major in biology and will be accepted into the program eventually, and that somewhere along that 4-year pathway.
All right, let's not get too deep into it, but let's talk about some specific different majors. So there are a couple of direct admit programs. So as a senior in high school applying as a freshman student, you might be selected for direct admission. Very few programs are direct admission. I think at Bothell it's like biology and business, I believe. But these are, you still need to complete prerequisites for these majors, but you're guaranteed a spot. The most common question I get at Bothell is computer science direct admission. Not at Bothell, it's not. Computer science is only pre-major and major pathway at Bothell. But do you want to talk about your direct admit programs?
All right, so we have a little over 10 where students can start a major right away, right out of high school. You don't do a separate application for them. All you do is list that as your first choice major on your application. The only major that requires anything extra are music majors. They have to audition, usually in their instrument, in order to be accepted into that major straight from high school. Every other of our direct to major majors, direct admit majors, all you do, like I said, is list as your first choice, and we'll consider you. But just know, the majority of those majors have other ways in. Business, you might get it admitted directly from high school, but only about a small percentage of students are admitted that way. The great majority of our business graduates who walk across the stage after 4 years with their business administration degree, they came in as other majors or pre-majors when they first started at the University of Washington. Same thing for informatics, same thing for chemistry. So architectural studies, construction management. So biochemistry, we have a few of those majors. Go online to get that complete list. If you're interested, just list that as your first choice. So now I'm going to segue into some caveats with the direct admission majors. Computer science, computer engineering, and you need to list that as your first choice. The only way in is directly from high school. We will not allow you to switch into it later. So you can't come in as a undecided student or a math student or statistics student or some other, kind of student, and then magically switch into computer science later. Okay, that won't happen, unfortunately. Computer science, computer engineering gets locked down very quickly. So you need to list as your first choice major to be considered in. But then we also have
direct to college.
Yeah. You want to talk?
I can talk direct to college for Seattle campus. So direct to college, this is specifically for the School of Engineering. So how it works is that you'll need to list an engineering program as your first choice, right?
Correct.
You do have to list engineering as your first choice major. If you're selected for a direct to college, that is fabulous. You will be studying a little bit of every field a tiny bit. And then after your first year in the engineering program, You'll rank your choices about which engineering specifically you want to do, and then that will transition into your engineering program. Again, prerequisites are still required for all these, so you don't get to skip things necessarily, but just is guaranteeing your placement into that major.
Yeah, excellent job. And just like computer science, computer engineering, if you're interested in engineering, has to be a first choice major too. The majority of our graduates in engineering come directly from high school. It's really, really hard to switch into it once you start at UW in another major. Not impossible like computer science and computer engineering, but hard.
Yeah, so we threw a lot of major stuff at you. Yeah. So please email us, look at our website. We're always happy to help with kind of navigating that pathway a tiny bit. So quickly, I want to go over some quick benefits of the UW. Again, we are a tri-campus model, so there are going to be benefits accessible to all Husky students, regardless of which they consider their home campus. I'd say the most sought after experience is cross-campus enrollment. So this means as a UW student, you can take up to 15 credits a year at another UW campus. Some students, there are particular minors that are not available at their home campus, so they can minor at something different. We had a student do a minor at Seattle campus. Seattle students have done minors at Bothell. Great experience, especially the computer science program. So if the computer science program in Seattle, we have a minor of computer science at Bothell that Seattle students do on occasion to complete those requirements. The library system, research opportunities, campus life such as clubs and activities open to all students. There's no restriction about which campus you attend. Oh, you can't go to Sousa Library and study here because you're not a Seattle student. That's not a thing that's happening at any of the campuses. Husky games, please go to a Husky game. The dog pack is world renowned, so please experience it one time. And lastly, study abroad, very similar across the cross-campus enrollment. Each UW has their own study abroad office, and they serve all UW students. So you have triple the options essentially for study abroad, which is really cool. All right, I want to segue quickly into a little bit about Bothell. So we kind of talked about where we relate, where we differ. So Bothell specifically, so we are a much smaller version of the UW system. So we're about 5,700 students, really small, more intimate campus experience with us. We have about 40 majors, not nearly as many as the Seattle campus, but all the popular majors, business, computer science, engineering programs, psychology, those are available across the board at all UW campuses. Quick fun fact about Bothell, not fun fact, I guess, like fun update. Brand new housing and a brand new dining hall just got built at UW Bothell. So we can have people living on campus and we can feed people, which is super exciting. Our dining hall used to be a Subway. That literally was how we fed people. So now we have an actual place where students can eat, hang out, and enjoy campus. So really exciting to have that great update to Bothell. So let's talk about Seattle. You've been around for a while.
Yes, and we've grown very large. And so Seattle is perfect for someone who loves lots and lots of choices, lots and lots of options. So we're just like bigger and on steroid with everything, right? We have more students, both undergrads, more professional and graduate students. We have more dorms. We have more majors, 180 majors, 110 minors you can choose from. Surprisingly, even with all that largeness, we try to make our classrooms as small as we can. So, over 90% of them have 100 or fewer students. And even if you're in those large lecture halls, we will break you up into quiz sections so that you might be with groups of 20 or 30 students reviewing weekly in that same class or having discussions. And what else? We have more sports, more D1 sports, more clubs, more. We have a lot of career fairs too. We have an amazing career center. They help students with their resume, with interviewing. They even have a small professional wardrobe that you can rent out if you need to. They had a professional photo booth this past year. So if you want to, have a very snazzy LinkedIn picture, you can. We're here for those who just love choices, love options.
All right, and lastly, I want to talk about Yvonne and I real quickly. So Yvonne and I both oversee the recruitment process, recruitment strategy, and all that stuff in our individual schools. But our job extends much more beyond that. Our job, most importantly, is to serve students, right? We want to help you find your right path. Even if you don't come to UW Seattle or come to UW Bothell, we want to make sure you are finding your right pathway. We want to help you understand the majors process. We want to help you understand if you're considering transferring to us. So please utilize us in all that context. No questions too big, no questions too small in our world of admissions. I do like to mention FERPA as an important piece here. FERPA, Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. Parents, I cannot answer questions about your student's application. So if you call me, say, did my son or daughter get admitted? I can't tell you, but I will be bugging your student a lot. So go to them. They will know because I've emailed them a bunch and I've called them sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the end. We have time, about 10 minutes for questions. So do folks have questions? And we will repeat questions for online folks. Sorry if you are not in that world. But yeah, questions that folks have they want to ask of Yvonne and I. Yeah.
How about the SAT score?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to talk about SAT?
Yeah.
Oh, so the question online about SAT and ACT. We mentioned test optional, but we're expanding on that a little bit more.
Right. So what does test optional mean? It means that you do not need to take and submit an SAT or ACT exam in order to be considered for admission or even to be admitted. So you can be offered admission without those test scores. We're also not going to look at AP or IB or Cambridge test exam scores either. They're all great. Take those exams because you'll be able to get college credit for them, but they won't matter in the admission review process. We're mostly going to be looking at what you do day in, day out in your classes and looking at how hard those classes are, whether you've made good progression and you're pursuing some of your academic core areas with some depth, okay? So that's the most important thing. Now, if you happen to take SAT or ACT exams and you want to send in those scores, we might take a look at them at the very, very end after we're done with selection. After we think we've pretty much made up our incoming class, those students who sent us some high test scores, we may say, oh, okay, let's give them another chance, and we may put them on the wait list. So it's for students who might not be offered admission. They might be given additional consideration by sending us SAT or SAT.
Yeah, on the initial review, though, SAT and ACT will not come up. They will make decisions fully, and then Seattle might go to the consideration for further review.
Right.
Cool. Other questions that folks had? Yes, question right here.
About transferring between classes. Let's say I get into UW Tacoma, but I really wanted to go to UW Seattle.
Beautiful question. We're ready. Thank you. He does not have play in the audience, everybody, I promise. So yeah, transferring between the UW campuses. So typically speaking, transferring between the UWs is not necessarily the reality that we want. We don't want people coming to Bothell or Tacoma with the intention of going to UW Seattle. That is not the ideal pathway. How UW does transfer is that we consider community college students first and foremost. So we look at that pool first. We admit from that pool as much as possible. The next consideration, public colleges, private colleges, other UW campuses. So they're kind of low on the consideration pathway. That's why UW does offer the cross-campus enrollment if they're looking to take classes at Seattle, but not necessarily transfer from one campus to another. I always like to tout to students too, like if they really were, considering UW Seattle and they might have been denied admission initially, I would not encourage you to do Bothell unless you intend to be there for your entire time. Community college is always the best way to kind of get started and potentially have a greater chance of transferring from a community college than one of the other UW campuses.
So I think a good way to see this is we have the same board of regents. They decide what classes we're going to teach. They decide on the faculty we're going to hire. So across the three campuses, you're going to still get that high quality instruction and learning opportunity, right? You want to think like, what kind of learner are you? Do you like that very large, fast-paced, kind of overwhelming kind of experience? If that's what sharpens your edges, makes you your best, then you might want to consider Seattle. But what if you learn best in a smaller setting where the professor knows your name and you're not maybe, some person maybe in that corner of the lecture hall, and that if you like that kind of learning environment where you're known and you can take on more leadership roles because it's smaller, then you might want to look at a Bothell or Tacoma. And then if I was that kind of student who loves that smaller learning environment and thrives in that, then to distinguish between Tacoma and Bothell, I might say, do I still want to be in the city? Do I want to walk, a couple of minutes to the coffee shop or to a restaurant? Or do I want Subway? No. If I want their brand new dining hall, and if I want more natural space to spend my free time in, then I might consider Bothell. So it's up to you. Think about it. Really think about what makes you a better learner.
Great question. Sorry for the online folks. Their question was about transferring between the UW campus. Hopefully you got that from our answer, but if you didn't, sorry. We could have led with that.
Yeah.
Are the curriculum the same across the campus?
Yeah.
So,
Question for online folks, is the curriculum the same across the campuses? Yes.
Yeah. Because they're governed by the same oversight forward. And so they have to meet a certain threshold, and they make sure that the faculty are distinguished in their profession, have published and are cited, and are good teachers. And we did mention that the diploma you get just says University of Washington.
Yeah.
No parentheses, which campus, or hyphens, or commas.
Asterisks. Cool. Other questions that folks had? Anything you want to know about? Any from online? I know it was a joke. We know online.
Yeah.
Sorry, online.
Just teasing. All right. A question that came up that I think is pretty relevant is about dual enrollment. We got a lot of questions in that previous session, so I just want to talk about that. It is seen as challenging coursework, just like advanced placement, just like international baccalaureate, just like Cambridge, just like college and the high school. So we don't value one over the other or prioritize one over the other. We see it as all challenging. But even within your individual curriculum at each of your different schools, we'll be looking at your classwork in particular, especially in the academic core areas. So we'll be looking at your English, like they'll be looking at whether or not you took honors when you could, advanced placement or IB or dual enrollment when you could. If you went over to the community college and you're just like this history buff, we would love to see you take advanced levels of history while there and take a full advantage of what that has to offer. And same thing in advanced placement and IB. We want to see that progression, right, in your coursework in each subject area. So that's what we're looking for. But all those curriculum are not the same, but don't worry about that. So if your child is based at what? I want to say Interlake, they can do AP, IB, dual enrollment. They can do it all, right?
Everything but Cambridge. Yep.
Yeah.
I have a question. You mentioned that you can't get in, aside from directly from high school to CS and some of those other more competitive majors through the direct admit program. What about those who are coming from a community college?
Yeah, so question here, talking about the direct admit program for first year students with computer science. We established earlier that there's some restrictions at the Seattle campus, but what about transferring? So completing prerequisites at a community college and then transferring into CS.
So if you're transferring from a community college into some of our more competitive programs, in addition to submitting the general admission application, you will also have to submit a departmental application. And so they will the departments will really evaluate you for that. But for even the most competitive programs like computer science and computer engineering, I think last year we took in 65 students during the autumn quarter, and 63 of those 65 were from the Washington Community Colleges.
Mm-hmm.
So it really is maybe a pretty good pathway in for students who didn't get in directly from high school.
Cool. Alrighty, any questions? Last question, we got a minute left. Yeah, question back here. Oh, great question. So the question was, is there not preferential, not what I'm looking for. Yeah, that's right. That's the right word. Sometimes in my English. Preferences between in-state versus out-of-state applicants. And start?
Yeah, absolutely. We prioritize our Washington residents. So they are admitted at a much higher rate. There are also more seats saved for them in our popular capacity constrained programs like computer science and computer engineering. So if you're out of state, you're in California, you want to come to Seattle for our computer science program, that admit rate is like 3%. So usually when I'm out in California, I say, hey, you might as well apply to Stanford. You'll probably get in there first. They love that. But here in Washington, it's an admit rate of roughly about 30% for our Washington students into computer science.
Yes. Yeah, I was just saying, our in-state is much higher than our out-of-state as well. So we really value Washingtonians.
We do.
Yeah.
You're lucky you live here.
Yeah, good start.
You also pay. And it's really amazing.
Tuition discount for in-state students. Yeah. So.
We are still one of the more affordable public research universities in this country. So it's a little over $12,000 for 9 months of academic coursework and fees. That is very hard to get.
All righty. that's the wrap. I mean, they're going to give us a bell in a second, but thank you all so much.
Yes, thank you.
Did you have any wrap up or is that a good wrap up? Okay, great.
Perfect.
Session 3 starts at 8 p.m. We got about 10 minutes.